If you've made it this far, you're officially part of our story. Tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? We love hearing your voices from every corner of the globe. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you won't miss the next chapter of this heartwarming journey, dropping tomorrow. Trust us, it's one you don't want to miss. Until then, keep believing in love, family, and second chances. See you in the next story. Caleb Dawson had it all, or so the world thought. At just 40, he was the CEO of one of Los Angeles' top real estate firms, living in a luxury penthouse with a skyline view, and driving a car that cost more than most homes. But behind every success story, there's often a silence no one sees. And for Caleb, that silence came in the form of a little boy he never knew existed. 7 years ago, his relationship with Emily Rhodes ended abruptly. She was a quiet, artistic soul, someone who found magic in the pages of children's books, while he was busy building empires out of skyscrapers. When they parted ways, there were no dramatic fights or final goodbyes, just distance, time, and unspoken pain. Emily never told Caleb she was pregnant. At the time, she didn't know how he'd react, and more than that, she didn't want to hold him back from his ambitions. So she moved back to her hometown in Seattle and raised their son, Jack, on her own. Jack never lacked love. Emily made sure of that. But as the years passed, the questions started to come. "Mom, why don't I have a dad like the other kids?" She'd hear late at night, just as the house went still. And then fate did what it always does. It intervened when no one expected it. Caleb discovered the truth in the most unlikely way. An old college friend of Emily's bumped into him at a charity gala and casually mentioned her adorable 7-year-old son with her eyes. Something didn't sit right. Caleb did the math. That night he couldn't sleep. Within days he booked a flight to Seattle, not as a CEO but as a man chasing answers. What he found wasn't just a boy. It was a piece of himself he didn't know was missing. Jack had his smile, his stubborn streak, and the same deep brown eyes that always revealed too much. The moment their eyes met, something shifted in Caleb. The world he had built, the one filled with glass towers and boardroom meetings, suddenly felt hollow. He didn't yell. He didn't demand anything. He just sat down on the park bench, next to Emily as Jack played with a paper plane in the grass. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, voice low, eyes fixed on the child. Emily didn't have an easy answer. No excuse could turn back time. But the moment was real and raw, and something new began to grow in that space, between guilt and possibility. For Caleb, the truth didn't shatter him. It awakened him. In a single afternoon, everything changed. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for sure: he was a father, and he would never, ever be absent again. It had been 3 weeks since Caleb found out the truth, that he had a son named Jack, a wide-eyed 7-year-old with a paper plane obsession and a laugh that echoed in Caleb's chest long after he left the park that day. 3 weeks of sleepless nights, of cancelled meetings and rescheduled business trips, because suddenly nothing mattered more than catching up on 7 years he could never get back. Caleb wasn't naive. He knew he couldn't just walk into Jack's life and expect a warm welcome. He hadn't earned it. Not yet. But he was determined to try, even if that meant starting from scratch. So he traded in his designer suits for sneakers and sweatshirts, took a leave from his company, and rented a cozy 2-bedroom condo just a few blocks from Emily and Jack's place. It was nothing like the penthouse he was used to, no marble floors, no view of downtown LA. But it was real, and it was his new starting line. The first few visits were awkward. Jack didn't call him Dad. In fact, Jack barely spoke at all unless it was about airplanes or dinosaurs. Caleb would show up every morning at 7:30 a.m., Fersin clutching 2 bags, one with fresh blueberry muffins and one with nervous hope. Emily watched with cautious eyes, not fully trusting him yet, but she let him try. Then came the small victories. One afternoon, Jack let Caleb help with his Lego tower. Another day they laughed at the same cartoon, and the first time Jack reached out and grabbed Caleb's hand while crossing the street, Caleb felt like he'd just closed a billion-dollar deal, but it wasn't all wins. One evening, Caleb offered to tuck Jack in. Emily stood in the hallway, arms crossed, unsure if she should step in. Jack climbed under his rocket ship blanket and stared at the ceiling. "You missed a lot," he whispered. Caleb knelt beside the bed, his voice thick. "I know, and I'm sorry, buddy. But I'm here now, for real. No more disappearing." Jack looked at him, eyes narrowed. "Promise?" Caleb nodded. "Cross my heart." That was the night Jack fell asleep to Caleb's voice, reading a story about brave explorers and second chances. Still, Emily had her doubts. She'd seen Caleb's world. The high-rise offices, the champagne parties, the women who wore stilettos at 9 a.m. She didn't believe he'd last a week living in the real world, but he kept showing up. He walked Jack to school every morning. He cooked grilled cheese, burnt on one side but made with effort. He even installed a child-sized desk in his condo, complete with crayons, a sketch pad, and a little sign that read, "Captain Jack's Mission Control." Caleb Dawson, the man who once chased power, was now chasing bedtime stories and peanut butter sandwiches. It wasn't easy, it wasn't perfect, but it was real. And for the first time in his life, Caleb wasn't trying to win. He was just trying to be someone worth coming home to. Jack wasn't like most 7-year-olds. Sure, he loved spaceships, peanut butter, and cartoons, but deep down he noticed things. The kind of things adults thought kids didn't pick up on, like how his mom's voice softened when she said, "Caleb's name," or how Caleb would linger in the doorway a little longer than necessary when it was time to leave. Jack saw it all, and in his own quiet way, he had a plan. It started small. One Saturday morning, as Emily folded laundry, Jack wandered into the kitchen holding his sketch pad. On the page was a drawing of 3 stick figures, one tall, one with curly hair, and one with a superhero cape. "That's you, me, and Daddy Caleb," he said casually. Emily froze. She hadn't expected him to call Caleb Daddy so soon. "We're going to the zoo in this one," Jack added, pointing at a pair of giraffes. Emily smiled, but inside she felt a storm brewing. Was this just a phase, or was Jack already stitching together the family he never got to have? Later that week, Jack asked if they could all go grocery shopping together, not because he needed anything, but because shopping is more fun with a team. Emily hesitated, but Caleb jumped at the chance. At the store, Jack pulled both their hands together and said, "Now we're a mission crew, no one splits up." Caleb shot Emily a look. She just shook her head, amused, confused, and maybe, just maybe, a little hopeful. But Jack wasn't. Done. One rainy Friday night, he asked if Caleb could stay for movie night. Emily had one rule, no sleepovers, but Jack had other ideas. Halfway through the film, Jack yawned dramatically, then crawled into Caleb's lap and whispered, "Don't go home tonight. It's too dark and rainy." Caleb looked at Emily. She stared back, torn between boundaries, and the look on her son's face. That night, Caleb slept on the couch. Jack woke up early, tiptoed past his mom's room, and climbed into Caleb's blanket fort on the living room floor. When Emily walked in with 2 mugs of coffee, she saw them, her son curled into the arms of the man she once loved. Her heart caught in her throat. Still, she kept her guard up. "Jack," she said gently, "you can't just trick people into staying." Jack looked up. "But we're better when we're all together. I can feel it." Those words hit Caleb, harder than any business negotiation ever had. Emily, too. She looked at her son, then at Caleb, and for the first time didn't say no. From that day on, Jack made it his mission. Family dinners, backyard games, reading stories together. He wasn't just playing, he was building something. Every laugh, every shared moment was another brick in the foundation of a home he'd never known, but always dreamed of. Caleb had money, power, and prestige. But none of it compared to the sound of Jack saying, "Let's do it together," and, "Emily?" She was starting to wonder, maybe love didn't leave, maybe it just waited until the right little voice called it home. Things had been going almost too well. Caleb was spending more time at Emily's house than at his own condo. Jack was happier than ever. His drawings now included hearts, breakfast tables, and 3 smiling faces. There were mornings when Caleb would stay for coffee, afternoons when he'd show up with grilled cheese and apples, and nights when Emily found herself watching him instead of the TV. But real life has a way of crashing in, loud, sudden, and uninvited. It started with a bike. Jack wanted to ride his new two-wheeler to school. No training wheels, no help. Caleb thought it was a great idea. "Let him try," he said. "He's tougher than we think." But Emily saw it differently. "It's a 4-block ride with traffic, Caleb. He's 7. This isn't a parenting win, it's a risk." They argued on the porch. Low voices, tight jaws. Jack, sitting by the window, heard every word. Later that week, it was about bedtime, then sugar, then screen time. "You let him stay up past 9 again," Emily snapped one evening. Caleb shrugged. "We were watching a documentary. He was learning." "He's 7, not 17, she fired back. The tension was growing, and Jack felt it. The family he was building, brick by loving brick, suddenly had cracks. One night, after overhearing yet another whispered argument, he quietly asked, "Are you two going to break up again?" That hit both of them hard. Emily knew they had to talk. Really talk. Not in passing, not over coffee. So she invited Caleb over. After Jack had gone to bed, she poured 2 glasses of wine, then sat across from him at the small kitchen table where everything began. "This isn't working," she said flatly. Caleb stared at her, stunned. "What do you mean?" "I mean, us playing house, showing up when it's fun, fighting over rules when it's hard. We can't keep doing this to Jack." He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "So what? I walk away again?" "No," she said quietly. "We figure it out, but for real this time." And that's when the hardest words came. "If you want full co-parenting rights," Emily said, "we need to go through the legal system." "Silence." "You don't trust me," Caleb finally whispered. "I trust that you love him," she said. "But love isn't a plan, and Jack needs more than weekend visits and bedtime stories. He needs structure, safety, stability." Caleb felt like the air had been knocked out of him. He'd built skyscrapers, closed million-dollar deals, but he'd never felt so powerless. "You want to fight me for him?" Emily looked away. "No. I want to protect him. Even if that means protecting him from you sometimes." It wasn't a threat, it was a mother's truth. That night, Caleb left quietly. No good night, no hug, just a heavy door clicking shut behind him. And upstairs, in his rocket ship pajamas, Jack stared out the window, wondering why the stars felt a little dimmer tonight. Days passed, then a week. Caleb didn't show up. Not for movie night, not for Sunday pancakes, not even for Jack's school presentation, where he'd been planning to sit in the front row, camera in hand. Emily told Jack that Caleb was busy with work. But even at 7, Jack could sense the lie in her voice. He didn't cry, he just got quieter, drew less, laughed less. And Emily? She was haunted by her words, by the look in Caleb's eyes when he walked out. She told herself she did the right thing, set boundaries, protected her son. But late at night, when the house fell silent, she questioned. Everything. Then came the emergency. Jack spiked a fever, 103 degrees. He was shivering, sweating, then vomiting by midnight. Emily rushed him to the ER, heart pounding, clutching him against her chest. Tests, IVs, nurses rushing in and out. She sat beside his bed, hand locked around his tiny fingers, whispering, "I've got you, baby. I'm right here." But Jack, in a dazed voice, asked, "Can Daddy come?" Emily hesitated. Then she did what she hadn't done in over a week. She picked up her phone and called. Caleb answered on the first ring. He didn't ask questions. He just came. 45 minutes. Later, he burst into the hospital room, hair messy, hoodie half-zipped, eyes wild with fear. The moment Jack saw him, something shifted. His breathing steadied. His hand reached for Caleb's, and for the first time in days, he smiled. That night, Caleb didn't leave. He sat beside Emily, shoulder to shoulder in a hard plastic chair, as machines beeped around them. At 4 a.m., with Jack finally sleeping peacefully between them, Caleb whispered, "You were right." Emily turned her head. "I didn't have a plan, I was just showing up, hoping it'd be enough, but it's not. He needs more. You both do." Emily's eyes welled with tears. "I didn't want to shut you out. I just didn't know how to let you in the right way." They sat in silence for a long time. Then Caleb said, "Let's try again, not as visitors in each other's lives. Let's build something, with a real foundation, for him, for us." Emily didn't answer right away, but she reached over and gently took his hand. 2 weeks later, Jack was back to full health and back to drawing. This time the picture wasn't of 3 stick figures. It was of a house. Their house, with a porch swing, a dog, and 3 people smiling together under a bright yellow sun. It wasn't perfect. There were still rules to make, plans to build, and wounds to heal, but there was love again. Real love, not the kind that comes and goes, but the kind that stays, even after the storms. And every night when Caleb kissed Jack goodnight, he'd whisper the same words, "I'm not going anywhere, buddy. I'm home." We know this story might have stirred something in you, whether it was a memory, a moment, or even a person you once loved. Now we'd love to hear from you. What part of this story hit home the most? Have you ever faced a tough decision for someone you loved, like Emily did? Or maybe you've had to earn someone's trust back, like Caleb. Every comment matters. And who knows, your story might just inspire someone else watching this right now. So drop a comment below. Tell us where you're watching from and what this story meant to you. We read every single one, and we always love connecting with you. And hey, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because tomorrow we continue this journey with a twist you won't see coming. Until then, take care and remember, sometimes second chances are the most powerful kind of love.